What is up, everybody? Jason Steyer. Hope everybody is having a fantastic day and ready to learn a little bit. Hopefully we'll have some viewers here in just a second, but if not, this is going to be recorded. So this training or this that I'm about to go through will be in the file section. I'll also have a recorded version that if anybody wants a link to it, I can send it to them. So I will download this. This is being recorded. I'll share my screen with you here in just a second. But a couple of things about today. We're going to talk about occupancy. Not a very sexy topic, but a very necessary one, especially with the amount of active military who we have are deployed and that have unconventional jobs when it comes to contractors and things like that. So I have gotten a lot of questions on this and gotten some interesting responses from some loan officers on these topics who don't really understand occupancy, how it works as it relates to the VA loan, because it's not like everybody else. So if you are watching this live, feel free to comment. I can see your comments there. I will answer any questions that you have. If not, I will get back to you. But let's see if I can share my screen with you here, and we will get started. So we'll go over some occupancy things today. Again, if you have questions, let me know. I would be more than happy to answer any questions. If you have not registered yourself, when you make a comment, I can't tell who you are. That's StreamYard, this streaming service, this software doesn't allow me to see your name. But I would imagine, hey, boss, that would be Brad Stinson, because that's what he calls me, affectionately, of course. But, and Brad, if you got anything on this, please chime in. So here we go. So we're going to cover the basics first, okay, about what the law on occupancy is. And this is right out of the VA handbook, people. So this is not anything that I've come up with on my own. But I'm going to give you some live examples of some scenarios that will pertain to this, and you might run across them. So this is good info to have, especially if you deal with the active military community. But the law of occupancy as it relates to the VA is a little different than other loan types. But it's pretty basic, pretty self-explanatory. They must have to personally live in the property as his or her home, okay? Or intend to, upon completion of the loan and acquisition of the dwelling, in a reasonable time. Okay. So let's talk about the first one, personally live in the property as his or her home. So there are situations where you might have a borrower who is a veteran who may work a job that makes him travel, to where he may only lay his head down in that house for 60 days a year. Well, that still satisfies the occupancy requirement because that is their primary residence. That's where they have their mail sent. That's where they go home. That is their home. Okay, so that satisfies that. So as far as reasonable time, this is where it starts to get a little tricky and confusing, because the reasonable time in the occupancy affidavit that they sign at closing is a little different because you have different scenarios. So one little thing I want to add to, and I've talked about this before, so let me back up just a little bit, but I've said this before. If you have a service member who has bought a home on their VA benefit, and they get deployed to a temporary duty station, let's say they go to Japan. They're going to be there for 6-9 months, whatever it is. Or they may be there for the remainder of their contract. They can still, if they retain that home with the VA loan on it, they can, even though they do not occupy that property, utilize the VA interest rate refinance reduction loan, or the IRRL. Okay, so this is one of the circumstances where they can do that. Let me give you another one. So if you have a veteran or that lives in Texas, they get a job in Virginia, they keep their house here in Texas and rent it out. There's somebody living in it. So technically, by IRS standards, it is a investment property. You claim on your Schedule E. but they can still utilize the IRL because they once occupied that home as their primary residence. Okay, so keep that in mind when you're talking to your clients, especially if you're having the consultation like we do when we talk to them about utilizing their benefit to create passive income down the road. Okay, so the reasonable time frame. What is reasonable time? Okay, reasonable time typically means 60 days after closing. They sign an occupancy affidavit that says that. Okay, but let me emphasize this. That does not mean they have to or they cannot do the loan. People get hung up on that all the time, that they have to occupy it as their primary residence or they can't occupy or they can't buy the house. That is not the case. Okay, because in the more than 60 days is allowed as long as certain conditions are met. Okay, one of those conditions is the veteran or the active military member certifies that they will personally occupy the property upon a specific date. So let's say that they active military, they're PCS into Fort Bliss from Fort Carson. They're going to buy, but their report date isn't for 90 days. Well, they can still buy that home because they're going to have orders. Those orders are going to have that no later report date. Well, that's going to tell us they're going to have to be there at that time. So obviously that makes sense. Okay. And then there's a particular future event that will make it possible for the veteran to personally occupy. So that kind of falls along those same lines. But let's say that you have, same thing if you've got somebody overseas or you've got somebody who's a contractor and they're in Afghanistan or wherever they're at and they're going to be moving back to the States in 9 months. We would get something from their employer stating they're going to be shipped back stateside in 9 months. Again, we can reasonably assume that they will occupy that property in a reasonable amount of time. Okay. So one of the beautiful things, the blessing and the curse about the VA home loan benefit is that they give us enough rope to hang ourselves when it comes to this stuff. We have to use good judgment. We have to use good judgment as loan officers. We have to use good judgment as real estate professionals, ask the right questions and hear the story. And right now it is more lenient. That's correct. Right now it's more lenient because people who are contractors, and again, this is a great thing to relay onto your customers because I can assure you of this, that most loan officers, especially ones who do not spend their time in the veteran space like we do, they're getting misinformation. They're being told that they cannot do it because they're not going to occupy it within 60 days. So I'm going to give you the perfect example of this. And before I move on to the spouse part of it, I had an agent call me last week and had a gentleman who is a windmill technician. So he works on the big windmill farms. Well, this guy travels literally like 10 months a year. He's all over the place. And the loan officer from Veterans United told them that they would not be able to execute and use his VA home loan benefit because he was not going to spend the majority of his time there. Okay, maybe whatever. Let's say that was actually true. Well, here's the other part. And this is what I'm about to get into with this next section. Can the spouse or the dependent child satisfy occupancy? And the answer to that question is yes. So in this gentleman's case, who happens to be married, who also has children, but in this case, he is married, his spouse is going to occupy that property. And the spouse can satisfy occupancy on behalf of the military member or the veteran. Okay, even the dependent children can do such. If they are staying with a legal guardian, the dependent children can satisfy occupancy. Okay, as you can see right here, the case in this, in the case of a dependent child, the veteran's attorney, in fact, or legal guardian of the dependent child must make certification on a certain specific VA form. So This is extremely important to understand in this day and age because we have tons of exiting service members. Those exiting service members may be finishing out their contract somewhere, but yet they want to send their family to, let's say, their home of record. Let's say they're in Hampton Roads. And they want to move back to Texas because, we are awesome here in Texas. And they want to send wife and kids back prior to his termination date. Well, if you asked most people, they might tell you that can't happen. But right here in the VA handbook, right here in chapter, whatever it is, 3, it's right there. Okay. And so we have a stat that my buddy Chad Fleming had given us. Thank you, Aaron. Yes, I know. I want to keep them there just for you, though. But maybe they buy here and then go back to Hampton Roads or something. Maybe something like that. Maybe just give me something for just a little bit. But so this is extremely important because some stuff that Chad had shared with me. There are, if I remember correctly, 1,300 service members exiting service a week. We have a lot of work to do, people. There's a lot of people out there that need help. There's a lot of people out there who are getting the wrong information, just like this gentleman did. And, a little bit on a sidebar with this particular guy, he was like, man, I don't want to, I've given him all my information and all this other kind of stuff. I'm like, sir, 2 things. You earn this benefit, number 1. Number 2, it's a better financial benefit for you because you're exempt from the funding fee. You don't have to put all the money down, leave your money in the market to make you more money, and your payment's still where you can afford it. So you've got to put people before yourself. And so part of this is listening to this kind of thing and spreading this message and beating the drum consistently. And I'm going to get off my marketing tangent, but we'll get back to that. But occupancy by the spouse may also side of the requirement if the veteran cannot personally occupy the dwelling. Okay? And there are instances where it's even a little weird for us. But what we might do is reach out to the RLC and get guidance. Guys, they are there for you for your benefit. They're not there to provide resistance. They're here to provide help. You've got to make sure that you're utilizing them. And also your military members that are going through this process, you've got to be able to do that. Okay? Because they're there to help. And, they're not always giving you the right answers. I'll be truthfully, but, there are people there who are. So, I have contacts at most of the regional loan centers, one in particular in Atlanta. She is my go-to, and she is an angel in disguise with the things that she does. So that being said, deployed or active duty. So for those of you like my friend Aaron, who is in Hampton Roads, who I learned that has the largest concentration of active military in the country, which is a fantastic stat. Chastity, who's out in El Paso, my buddy Paul Podhorn, who is in Fort Hood, my buddy TJ Courtney, who is in Oklahoma City at Tinker Air Force Base. A lot of active duty military, a lot of in and out, especially right now, lots of deployments. So this is vital information that you cannot assume that they know, because I can assure you they don't. Okay? So single or married are considered to be in temporary duty status. So if they go to Japan for the remainder of their contract, they're going to be there 3 years. It's still a temporary duty status. So they can satisfy that occupancy. They can buy a house overseas before they get home. So, and those are special circumstances sometimes, but don't discount it. Don't exclude it. Let's have the conversation. Let's hear the story, and let's vet it. I promise you, we will make sure, if it can work, we will damn sure make that it works. Okay? And this is true whether or not they have a spouse. So no spouse needs to satisfy occupancy in the event they are active duty. Okay? So here's my, as it relates to occupancy. I think we covered, most of the stuff. It's a very short chapter that's in section 5 of the handbook. of this particular chapter as it relates to occupancy. But one other thing that I want to add too, so if you agents listening to this, and if you share this with your clients, I would hope that you would. Let's give you this scenario. I had a client back in January who was stationed at 29 Palms. He wanted his wife to move back here to Justin because that's where he was going to retire when he got out. He was about 2.5 years from his contract date. So they bought the house. She moved with the kids, obviously satisfies the occupancy requirement. But where does he go? What does he do? So what he did was he rented and had a fifth wheel that he kept on post and lived in that, which is perfectly fine. We just got something from his command saying that he can do that. Boom, done. End of story. But here's something to consider. Let's say that service member may be staying or renting an apartment or being charged rent somewhere. So you LOs listening to this, make sure that you are counting that expense against them if they are paying rent. You have to do that. Under normal circumstances, we might not count rent because it's not going to continue. In this case, it is. So it is a liability. So make sure you're counting that. Make sure you go through that mental checklist. Okay, where are you going to live? Are they going to charge you? Nope, you're good to go. Okay, good. Privatized housing. All right, great. Stay on post in those nasty houses. Whatever you're going to do, but make sure there's no debt. I've seen that get hung up. Somebody could be paying $1,500 a month in rent. Well, that can blow a deal out of the water like that. Okay? So that is all the time we have for today in this particular training. What I would ask of you is invite your friends to the group, invite your agent friends to the group. We're going to be doing these trainings at least once a week. Even though we're all super busy, I feel it's extremely necessary that when we are busy, we still have to train. We still have to make sure we are sharpening our skills, getting the right information, sharing ideas. This group is made for that. These videos are made for that. If you want to add to them, great. If you want to ask questions, chat, whatever. This is an open forum, and we are here to learn from each other. So please take the time to share this with your clients. If you're in other military affiliated groups that I might not be able to get in because I am a civilian, please share this in there if the moderators will let you, because I can assure you that just because someone may do VA business, they may not know these things. Okay, let's make no assumptions here. We're all here to learn and get better from each other. So everybody have a fantastic rest of your week. We're on the downhill slide to Memorial Day. Have fun with your families. Do the right thing. Enjoy each other. Stay safe. I love each and every one of you, and we will see you guys soon.